My name is Chloe. I'm 20 years old, a full-time university student, and I've always paid my own way. So when my parents sat me down and demanded I give my car, the one bought with my own savings, to my older brother, I was stunned. Their justification lit a fire in my stomach. His new job is more important than your classes. I told them no, that wasn't an option. And that's when it truly escalated. I went to leave for class and my keys were gone from the hook. My mother just watched me. They admitted they took them. Then, my father delivered the line that changed everything. You're grounded until you agree to be a good sister and give your brother your car. The heat rose up my neck, my jaw locked, grounded. I am a 20-year-old adult. They had stolen my property and were now holding me hostage in my own home. I just stared at them. They thought they had me trapped. They thought they'd broken me. They thought I would just fold. They didn't count on me having a plan. Have you ever been punished for someone else's mistake? This is the story of how I stopped being the family scapegoat and finally took back my life. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, hit that subscribe button. To understand why they thought they could do this, why they thought they could just take my property, you have to understand the dynamic in our house. In my family, there have always been two tracks. There was my brother, the golden child. And there was me, the one who had to figure it out for herself. My life runs on a tight, unforgiving schedule. It has to. I'm a full-time university student, and I also work a part-time job. Every minute of my day is accounted for. My classes, my study blocks, my shifts. My car isn't a luxury. It is the linchpin holding my entire life together. It's my lifeline. My campus is a 20-minute drive from the house. That's 20 minutes to mentally prepare for a lecture, 20 minutes to decompress after an exam. It's manageable, it's sane. Without it, the only alternative is the public bus, and I'm not talking about a simple direct route. I'd have to take 2 different buses, with a transfer in the middle. I've timed it before. The whole trip, one way, is over 2 hours. 2 hours, there. And 2 hours, back. 4 hours of my day, gone. 4 hours of lost study time. 4 hours of standing room only. Of anxiety about missing a connection. Of getting home in the dark long after my shift ends. They knew this. They knew that car was the only thing that made my schedule possible. And they knew, better than anyone, what it cost me to get it. I saved for over a year for that car. I took every extra shift I could get my hands on. While my friends were going out, I was clocking in. While my brother was asking for, and getting, allowance money, I was budgeting every dollar. No new clothes, no expensive lunches. Just the slow, agonizing crawl of watching that savings account tick up, dollar by dollar. It was a year of exhaustion, a year of balancing textbooks and late-night shifts. But then, the payoff. I will never, ever forget the day I bought my 2012 model. I sat in the little office at the used car lot, my hand shaking just a little as I signed the papers. The salesman slid the key across the desk. It wasn't shiny or new, but it felt heavy in my hand. It was the weight of 1,000 sacrifices. I sat in the driver's seat alone for a full 5 minutes, just breathing in the smell of the upholstery, that mix of old fabric and Armor All. I touched the steering wheel. I turned the key and listened to the engine catch. It was the sound of freedom. Most importantly, I held the title, the legal document, with my name on it, Chloe. Not my parents', not the family's, mine. It was untouchable. Or so I thought. Then, there was my brother's 21st birthday. There was no grind for him. No saving, no sacrifice. My parents threw this huge backyard party, music, catering, all of it. The big finale was when they led everyone to the driveway, and there it was. A brand new car. It was gleaming, perfect, a ridiculous, over-the-top red bow stuck to the hood. My brother, he just beamed. He took the keys from my dad, and everyone cheered. He didn't work for it. He didn't stay up late studying. He didn't give up a single thing. He just got it. I stood there, clapping along, but my stomach felt hollow. It's not that I was jealous. That's not the right word. I was proud of buying my own car. What stung was the ease. What stung was the public, Shiny, brand new proof of the two tracks. I was the one who had to earn. He was the one who was given. Was I happy for him? I suppose. But did some small, cold part of me know, even then, that his shiny new toy would eventually, somehow, become my problem? You better believe it. And, just as I predicted, my brother's shiny new toy became my problem. It didn't even take long. Less than a week ago, he wrecked it. I came home from a late study session, and the house felt wrong. My parents were in the kitchen, speaking in hushed, angry whispers. I found out my brother had totaled his brand new car. The details were vague, but the implication was clear. It was his fault. He'd been reckless, and now his expensive gift was a heap of twisted metal. I felt bad for him, I did. But mostly, I just felt tired. I knew what was coming. Suddenly, the entire house was in crisis mode. But the crisis wasn't about my brother's irresponsibility. It wasn't about him learning a lesson. Oh no. The crisis was about his convenience. He had just started a new job. How was he going to get there? This was the only question that mattered. My parents were frantic, pacing the living room, throwing out impossible solutions. His job. His new job. It was a sacred chant. I just kept my head down. I stayed in my room, studying, trying to remain invisible. I knew my 2012 car, sitting quietly in the driveway, was a target. It didn't take them long to aim. The next night, I was summoned. Chloe, we need to talk. They sat me down at the kitchen table, the family meeting spot. The air in that room was so heavy, so staged. My mother was nervously wiping down a perfectly clean counter. My father was staring at the table, his jaw set. And my brother. He was there too, slumped in a chair in the corner, staring at his phone, refusing to make eye contact. He wouldn't even look at me. He was a 1-year-old man, but he was perfectly content to let our parents fight his battle for him. He just sat there, silent, radiating entitlement. My mother started. Chloe, you know your brother is in a terrible situation. I nodded. I heard. It sucks. He has to get to his new job, my father cut in, his voice already firm. He can't lose this. I waited. I knew what was next. My mother gave me a tight, false smile. So, we have a solution. It's really very simple. I looked at her. What solution? And that's when she said it, the line that was so absurd, so insulting, I almost laughed. You can just take the bus. My blood ran cold. What? To your classes, she said, as if it were the most reasonable suggestion in the world. You can just take the bus and your brother can use your car until the insurance gets sorted out. I just stared at them. I think my mouth was actually open. You can just take the bus, as if it was a minor inconvenience. I slowly pulled out my phone. I opened the transit app, right there at the table. I typed in the university address. Mom, I said, my voice dangerously calm. For me to just take the bus, I have to leave the house at 6:15 a.m. I have to take the number 12, transfer at the downtown terminal, and then take the 90 Campus Express. Best case scenario, I get to campus at 8:30. That's over 2 hours. I looked at my dad. My drive is 20 minutes. So you'll have to adjust, he said, waving his hand dismissively. And coming home? I continued, the app open in my hand. My night class ends at 9 p.m. The last bus I can catch leaves at 9:15. If I miss it, I'm stranded. If I make it, I won't get home until almost 11:30 p.m. My 20-minute commute becomes a 4-hour-a-day ordeal. I looked from my mother's nervous face to my father's hardening one. And in that moment, something inside me just snapped. 4 hours. They were sitting there, under the bright kitchen lights, telling me to sacrifice 4 hours of my life, my sleep, my study time, my safety. The part-time job that paid for the very car they were trying to take. They were demanding I set fire to my own life, all to protect him from the consequences of his mistake. The audacity of it. The sheer, blinding entitlement. It took my breath away. I looked up from my phone, the bus schedule still glowing on the screen. I looked at my mother's tight, expectant smile. I looked at my father's impatient expression, and I looked at my brother, still staring at his lap, the 1-year-old coward in the corner. and I said one word. No. My father's eyes snapped up. What did you say? I said no. That's not an option. You can't have my car. My mother jumped in, her voice taking on that high, placating tone she always used when she was trying to manipulate me. Chloe, honey, don't be difficult. It's just for a little while. We have to support your brother. I am supporting him, I said, and my voice was colder than I expected. I'm supporting him by not paying for his mistake. But more importantly, I'm supporting myself. I stood up from the table. I wasn't going to let them trap me there. I told you, I said, looking right at my dad. I bought that car with my own money. I worked for a year. The title is in my name. It is legally my property. It's just a car, Chloe, my mother started. No, I cut her off. It's not just a car. It's my education. I need it for uni. I cannot spend 4 hours on a bus every day and keep my grades up. I can't get to my job. I will fail my classes. I laid it out for them, plain and simple. I was defending my future. I was defending the very education they always claimed to value. I actually thought, that this would be the end of it. That my logic was undeniable. That they would see reason. I was so wrong. My father scoffed. It was a sharp, ugly sound of pure dismissal. He stood up too, using his height to try and intimidate me. And that's when he said the one line that changed everything. The one line that proved, once and for all, where I stood in this family. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "His job is more important than your classes." There it was. The air just stopped. All the sound in the room went flat. More important. His brand new job, which he only needed because he'd been reckless, was more important than my university degree. My future. The countless hours I spent studying, the tuition I was working to help pay for, the future I was trying to build. All of it. Worth less than my brother's convenience. It wasn't just an insult. It was a verdict. I looked over at my brother. He finally looked up. He saw the look on my face. He heard what our father just said. And he did. Nothing. He said nothing. He didn't defend me. He didn't say, "Dad, that's not fair." He just sat there, silent, and let it happen. His silence was his agreement. I felt something break inside me. It was that last, thin thread of hope that they saw me, that they valued me. I just stared at my father. All the fight, all the anger just drained out of me. It was replaced by something cold and hard. "This isn't up for discussion," I said. My voice was flat. "You are not taking my car." I turned around. I walked out of the kitchen. I went to my room. I could hear my mother start to say my name, but my father cut her off. "Let her go. She'll pout and then she'll see sense." I closed my bedroom door. I remember leaning against it, my heart hammering. I thought that was the end of it. I thought my no was final. I thought I had survived the argument. I was still so naive. I thought the argument was the battle. I didn't realize the war was just about to begin. The next day, the house was silent. But it wasn't a peaceful silence. It was a loud silence, a heavy, angry, suffocating blanket of tension. My parents were ignoring me, but it was an active ignoring. They would walk out of a room when I walked in. My father would turn the page of his newspaper with a sharp, aggressive snap. My mother would slam cabinets in the kitchen. They were treating me like a disobedient child, waiting for me to break, waiting for me to come crawling back and apologize for, what? For owning my own property? I just kept my head down. I had a midterm in my political science class. I locked myself in my room, trying to focus on my notes, but the tension from the rest of the house was seeping under the door. I told myself, just get through this, get to class, get out of the house, your car is your escape. The next morning, I was running on pure adrenaline and caffeine. I had my exam. I just needed to get to campus. I followed my normal routine, showered, dressed. I grabbed my backpack, slung it over one shoulder. I grabbed my water bottle. I was intentionally quiet, trying not to provoke anyone. I just wanted to leave. I walked to the entryway, to the little hook by the front door. It's where I always put my keys. It's muscle memory. I've done it every day for over a year. I reached out, my fingers expecting to hook the metal ring. And they hit nothing. My hand just, hit the wall. I stopped. I stared. The hook was empty. My heart did a painful little kick. No. I patted my pockets. Nothing. I ripped open the front pouch of my backpack, digging through it, knowing they weren't in there. They never go in the bag. They go on the hook. Okay, I said to the empty hallway. Okay. I looked on the little table under the hook. I checked the kitchen counter. Not there. Not there. The panic started to rise, cold and sharp, and that's when I felt it. The feeling of being watched. I turned around, slowly. My mother was standing in the kitchen doorway. She wasn't drinking coffee. She wasn't reading the mail. She was just standing there, her arms crossed, watching me. Her face was a mask of cold disappointment. She had been waiting for this moment. She had been waiting for me to realize. My voice came out as a whisper. Where are they? She didn't pretend not to know. She didn't ask, where are what? She just stared at me. Where are my keys, Mom? Her voice was flat, devoid of all warmth. We took them. The floor just dropped out from under me. The walls of the hallway felt like they were pulsing. I gripped my backpack strap. You. What? We took them, she repeated, as if it were the most normal thing in the world, as if she were telling me we were out of milk. We can't let you be so selfish, Chloe. Your brother needs to get to his job. We're a family. We help each other. That is not help, I said, my voice shaking. That is theft. You stole my car. Don't be dramatic. We didn't steal it. You took my keys. You are preventing me from accessing my own property. That is stealing. I have an exam right now. Then you should have thought of that, she said, her voice turning sharp. You should have been a good sister. You can have them back when you agree to do the right thing. I just stared at her. This wasn't an argument anymore. This wasn't a family dispute about borrowing something. This was a line. A massive, permanent line, and my own mother had just crossed it without even blinking. The people who were supposed to protect me, the woman who raised me, had just stolen from me. They had stolen my freedom, my independence, the one thing I had ever earned for myself. The betrayal was so total, so absolute, it felt like a physical blow. The air in my lungs turned to ice. They weren't just taking my car. They were telling me that my education, my life, none of it mattered, and they were willing to prove it. Give me my keys. My voice was shaking, but it was loud. It echoed in the hallway. My father must have heard me, because he appeared from the living room, his face a thundercloud. Don't you dare use that tone with your mother. She stole my keys, I yelled. I was past caring about tone. You both did. That is my car. My name is on the title. You cannot, legally, take it from me. Give them back, now. I stated my case. I was an adult. I was the legal owner. This was an open and shut case of theft. And they laughed. My father actually let out a short, barking laugh. The title? You're going to talk to us about the title? Unbelievable. My mother's coldness dissolved into a high-pitched, wounded whine. We raised you. We put a roof over your head. We fed you. And this is how you repay us? By being a horrible, selfish, bad sister? This has nothing to do with being a sister, I shot back. This is about my property. I have an exam. Exactly, my father boomed, stepping toward me. It's always about you, isn't it? Your exam, your car, your classes. It's me. What about your brother? What about this family? You are the most ungrateful child I have ever known. Ungrateful, bad sister, selfish. The words were coming so fast, like bullets. They were designed to do one thing, push me back down, to make me feel small, to make me feel guilty. To remind me that, in this house, my needs were a crime. This wasn't an argument between adults. This was a shaming. This was an interrogation. I was 20 years old. I paid for my own car. I paid for my own gas. I was succeeding in university. And they were treating me like I was 12. I just couldn't bridge the gap. The sheer, insane gap between a 20-year-old adult and the disobedient child they saw in front of them. The dissonance was making me dizzy. I am not a child, I said, my voice dropping. You cannot do this. Oh, we can't? my father said. He took another step, backing me against the wall. His face was dark. We absolutely can. You are living under our roof, and you will follow our rules. And that's when he delivered the final, impossible blow. The line that proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that they were completely unhinged. You're grounded. I blinked. I'm pretty sure I laughed. It was a nervous, hysterical sound. What? You can't ground me. I just did, he said, his voice deadly serious. You are grounded until you agree to be a good sister and give your brother your car. You're not going anywhere. My laugh died in my throat. I looked at my mother. She just nodded, her arms crossed, in full agreement. They weren't kidding. The realization hit me. This wasn't just a threat. This wasn't a metaphor. They had stolen my keys. They were physically blocking the door. They were, in no uncertain terms, holding me prisoner in my own home. They were illegally detaining me. These were the people who were supposed to love me. And in that instant, just like that, all the anger vanished. All the panic, the shaking, the tears I was trying to hold back. It all just evaporated. It was replaced by a cold, sharp, terrifying clarity. A click, like a switch being flipped. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was a hostage, and they were my captors. I stopped yelling. I unclenched my fists. I let my shoulders drop. I looked at my father, who was still puffed up with righteous anger, and I gave him a small, empty nod. Okay, I said. My father's expression flickered. This wasn't the reaction he wanted. He wanted me to scream, to cry, to beg. Okay, what? Okay, I repeated, my voice completely flat. I understand. I turned around, my backpack still on my shoulder. I walked past them, down the hall to my bedroom. I didn't run. I walked. I could feel their confused, angry eyes on my back. I got to my room. I stepped inside. I closed the door, and I clicked the lock. The moment that lock clicked, I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I pulled out my phone. My fingers were steady. I didn't call my parents. I didn't call my friends to complain. I opened a text to my boyfriend, Mark. My message was simple. They stole my keys. They are grounding me and won't let me leave. I need you to come and get me. Park down the street. I hit send. Then, I sat on the edge of my bed. I just listened to the sound of my own breathing. My hands weren't even shaking. They thought grounded was a punishment. They thought they were being parents. They didn't realize what they had actually done. They had just given me the ultimate weapon. This wasn't a family dispute anymore. This was a crime, illegal detainment, theft of property. They had escalated this from a simple, toxic argument into something the law has a name for. In their rage, they had handed me the proof. Proof that this wasn't family. This was a hostage situation. And in that cold, quiet room, I stopped being their daughter. I was just a person, trapped, who needed to get out. My phone buzzed. Mark, I'm here. I grabbed my empty backpack. I quietly unlocked my door. My parents were in the living room, probably stewing, waiting for my apology. I didn't look at them. I walked straight to the front door, opened it, and walked out. I heard my father yell, "Chloe, you get back here!" I just kept walking. I didn't run. I got to Mark's car, got in, and locked the door. He just looked at me, his face pale. "Are you okay?" "No," I said, buckling my seatbelt. "Don't go to your place. Go to the police station." He stared at me. "Are you serious?" "They stole my car keys. They physically tried to stop me from leaving. Go, now." He put the car in drive. Walking into that police station was one of the hardest things I've ever done. My hands were finally shaking. I felt like a little kid. I kept thinking, "You're calling the police on your parents. This is insane." But the officer at the desk, he just listened. He looked at my ID. He asked for the car registration, which I had on my phone. He saw my name. He saw my age. He just nodded. "Okay, let's go get your keys." I have never, in my life, experienced anything like the drive back to that house. This time, I wasn't in Mark's car. I was in the passenger seat of a police cruiser. We pulled up to the curb, right in front of my house. My parents must have seen the car through the window, because the front door flew open. My mother came running out onto the porch, my father right behind her. Their faces. They weren't angry. They were confused. The officer got out, calm and professional. I got out and stood behind him. "Ma'am, sir," the officer said, his voice polite but firm. "Are you the parents of Chloe?" "Yes. What's wrong?" my mother said, trying to sound concerned. "Chloe, what did you do?" "Ma'am," the officer said, holding up a hand. "I'm here because your daughter has reported the theft of her car keys." My mother's face went white. My father's turned purple. "Theft?" my father blustered. "This is a family matter. She's our daughter. We're disciplining her." The officer just nodded, his expression unchanging. "Sir, your daughter is 20 years old. She is a legal adult. This vehicle," he said, gesturing to my 2012 model in the driveway, "is titled and registered in her name. That makes it her property. By taking her keys and refusing to return them, you are committing theft." He let that hang in the air. "Furthermore," he continued, "by telling her she is grounded and preventing her from leaving the residence, you are engaging in unlawful detainment." My mother looked like she was going to faint. Unlawful. "Yes, ma'am," the officer said. "You must return her property to her immediately. If you refuse, she has the right to press charges, and I will have to arrest you." The silence on that front porch was absolute. My parents just stared at him. Their entire world, the little kingdom where their rules were law, had just been invaded and dismantled by the real world. They had no power here. The family card didn't work. Furious, humiliated, my mother turned around, marched inside, and came back. She didn't look at me, she looked at the officer. And she shoved my keys into my hand. I took the keys from my mother's hand. I didn't say thank you. I didn't say anything. I looked from her furious, humiliated face to my father's, who looked like he'd just been struck by lightning. Then, I turned my back on them. I walked past the police officer, back into the house. I didn't go to my room to pack. I wasn't going to give them the time. I went to my closet, reached up to the top shelf, and pulled down the duffel bag that had been packed and waiting for this exact day. My go bag. It had a few days' worth of clothes, my essential documents, and my laptop. I had packed it a year ago. A part of me had always known this day was coming. With my backpack on one shoulder and the duffel bag in my hand, I walked back to the front door. My parents were still on the porch, frozen, watching the officer get back into his cruiser. They looked small. I walked right past them, down the steps. The sound of the cruiser's engine starting must have broken the spell. The screaming started. "Chloe! Chloe! You get back here! You are not leaving!" It was my father, his voice cracking with a rage I'd never heard before. Then my mother, her voice a piercing shriek. "You ungrateful, horrible daughter. After everything we've done for you, you call the police on your own family? You are tearing this family apart." Ungrateful, horrible, selfish. The same old, tired words. But this time, they had no power. They were just noise. The desperate, dying screams of a regime that had just been overthrown. I didn't look back. I didn't flip them off. I didn't say a word. I just kept walking. I got to Mark's car, still parked down the street. I opened the passenger door, threw my bags in the back, and got in. I locked the door. He just looked at me, his eyes wide. "Go," I said, my voice quiet. "Just drive." He put the car in drive. As we pulled away, I could still see my parents standing on the porch, yelling into the empty street. It was pathetic. I didn't look back. I moved in with Mark that day. I set up my stuff in his small spare room. And that night, I finally let it all out. I sat on the floor, and I just cried. I cried for the family I was supposed to have. I cried for the 20-year-old girl who had to call the police on her own parents. Mark didn't try to fix it. He just sat with me, a silent, steady presence. He was my family now. My phone. Oh, my phone exploded. For days, a constant, vibrating stream of poison. Texts from my parents, calling me every name in the book. Voicemails where I could just hear my mother sobbing, "How could you do this to us?" Then angry texts from my brother, finally chiming in, calling me a psycho for getting the police involved. I sat on the little balcony of Mark's apartment. I read every single message, and then I muted them. I muted my mother. I muted my father. I blocked my brother. The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I have ever heard. The next morning, I woke up. I made coffee. I put my keys in my pocket. I walked down to my car, which was parked safely in Mark's apartment complex. I got in, I turned the engine, and I drove to my university. I aced my midterm. My parents. They were left with their golden child. Their more important son, who still had no car. No way to get to his job. No insurance check that had come through yet. And you know what? That was no longer my problem. I'm sitting on that balcony right now. It's been a few weeks. My keys are sitting on the table next to my coffee mug. They look different now. They're not just metal. They're not just a tool to start an engine. They're a symbol. They're my freedom. They're the receipt for the most expensive thing I ever bought, not the car, but my own life. My parents thought family meant they owned me. They thought their love was a transaction, and that my gratitude was the price. But I learned that day that you cannot let anyone devalue your future, not even your own blood. You cannot let anyone tell you that your education, your dreams, or your property are less important. Sometimes, the only way to win a toxic game is to stop playing. You have to be willing to set a boundary so hard, so final, that it changes everything. Even if it means calling the police on your own family. If you've ever had to choose between yourself and a family that wouldn't choose you, hit that subscribe button. You are not alone, and you are not ungrateful for saving yourself.